I am Mason, 31 years old, and a successful software engineer. After 8 grueling years, I finally earned my Ph.D. in computer science. What should have been the proudest day of my life became the moment I realized my family would always choose my sister Amanda over me. When they skipped my graduation to help her move apartments, I made the painful decision to cut them off completely. Now they are facing consequences they never expected. Before I dive into this story, let me know where you are watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button. Trust me, you will want to see how I finally stood up for myself after years of being the family afterthought. Growing up in suburban Chicago, our family of 4 seemed normal from the outside. My parents, Robert and Patricia, both worked steady jobs, and we lived in a comfortable 4-bedroom house with a large backyard. My sister Amanda is 3 years younger than me, and from my earliest memories, she was clearly the favorite child. The pattern started when we were very young. When I was 7 and Amanda was 4, my parents threw her an elaborate princess-themed birthday party with professional entertainment, custom decorations, and a towering cake. 2 months later, my birthday consisted of pizza and a store-bought cake in our living room. I remember feeling confused, but not wanting to seem ungrateful. As we grew older, the favoritism became more obvious. Amanda was enrolled in dance classes, swimming lessons, and music programs. My parents attended every recital and competition, cheering loudly and recording every moment. When I joined the science club and math team, my parents rarely showed up for competitions, citing work commitments or scheduling conflicts. Amanda needs more support, my father would explain when I questioned the disparity. She is more sensitive than you. You are naturally independent and strong. This became their justification for everything. I was labeled the self-sufficient child who did not need attention, while Amanda supposedly required constant encouragement and praise. The most glaring example came during our high school graduations. When Amanda graduated, she received a brand new red Volkswagen Beetle with a giant bow on it. My graduation gift, 3 years earlier, had been a used laptop my dad got through a work connection. When I mentioned the difference, my mother said, "We were in a better financial position when Amanda graduated." This explanation made little sense considering my father had received a significant promotion the year before I graduated. Throughout our teenage years, family vacations were planned around Amanda's interests. If she wanted to go to Disney World, we went to Disney World. If she wanted to visit the beach, we drove to Florida. My suggestions to visit science museums or national parks were consistently overruled. Family dinners regularly became showcases for Amanda's achievements. A B+ on her math test warranted celebration, while my consistent A grades were expected and therefore unremarkable. I remember bringing home an award for a regional science competition, only to have my mother glance at it and say, "That is nice, Mason. Did you see Amanda made the junior varsity cheerleading squad?" I constantly tried to rationalize their behavior. Perhaps Amanda truly did need more support. Maybe I was just more naturally confident and needed less validation. I told myself it was not intentional that my parents loved us equally, but expressed it differently. But deep down, I recognized the unfairness of it all. The pattern continued through college. Amanda attended a state university close to home, and my parents visited her monthly, bringing home cooked meals and care packages. I went to school 2 states away and received perhaps 3 visits throughout my entire undergraduate career. When Amanda struggled with her classes, my parents hired tutors without hesitation. When I needed money for textbooks, I was reminded of how scholarships should cover those expenses and that I needed to budget better. I took on part-time jobs to make ends meet, while Amanda received a monthly allowance. All this time, I kept suppressing my feelings of resentment. I convinced myself that one day when I achieved something truly significant, my parents would finally see me. I believed that if I just worked hard enough, earned enough accolades, reached high enough heights, they would finally give me the recognition I craved. This belief pushed me toward academic excellence, but also created a dangerous emotional dependency on validation I was unlikely to ever receive. By the time we reached adulthood, the pattern was so deeply established that none of us questioned it anymore. Amanda had been trained to expect special treatment. My parents were programmed to provide it, and I had learned to expect disappointment. The family dynamic was dysfunctional, but stable in its predictability. Yet beneath my acceptance bubbled a growing resentment that would eventually reach a breaking point. After completing my bachelor's degree in computer science with honors, I decided to pursue a Ph.D. at a prestigious university on the East Coast. This decision was driven partly by genuine academic interest and partly by a lingering hope that achieving the highest possible educational credential might finally earn my parents' recognition. The journey through graduate school was incredibly demanding. Unlike many of my peers who received financial support from their families or had their expenses fully covered by generous fellowships, I had to work multiple jobs to support myself. During my first year, I worked 20 hours weekly as a teaching assistant plus weekend shifts at a local tech repair shop. Most nights I would return to my tiny studio apartment at 11 p.m. exhausted, but still facing hours of research and coursework. My parents called occasionally, but our conversations typically revolved around Amanda's latest adventures. She had graduated with a marketing degree and landed an entry-level position at a local advertising agency. My mother would excitedly relay stories about Amanda's work projects or social events, barely pausing to ask about my progress. "Your sister just got assigned to the Johnson account," my mother would gush. The youngest team member to get such responsibility, when she finally asked about my studies, it felt like an afterthought. "Oh, and how are your classes going?" she would add quickly before launching into another Amanda anecdote. The turning point in my academic journey came when I met Dr. Nathaniel Crawford, a distinguished professor who became my dissertation advisor. Unlike my parents, Dr. Crawford saw potential in me and invested time in developing my skills and confidence. "Mason, your approach to algorithm optimization is genuinely innovative," he told me, after reviewing one of my early papers. "With proper development, this could significantly impact the field." Dr. Crawford became the mentor and father figure I had always craved. He invited me to family dinners at his home, introduced me to influential colleagues, and pushed me to publish my research in prestigious journals. When I achieved my first major publication in a top-tier computer science journal, Dr. Crawford took me out to celebrate. "This is just the beginning," he said, raising a glass and toast. "I could not be prouder of your work." That moment of recognition meant everything to me. I called my parents that night, hoping to share my excitement. My father answered, and listened for approximately 30 seconds before interrupting. "That is great, son. Hey, did Mom tell you Amanda just got promoted after only 8 months at her company? We are taking her out to Morton's Steakhouse this weekend to celebrate." They did not ask me to join them, despite knowing I would be visiting home the following month. During this period, I also formed important friendships that sustained me through the challenges of the program. My college roommate Ethan had moved to the same city for work, and we reconnected. He became a consistent source of support and encouragement. "Your parents have no idea what you are accomplishing here," Ethan said one evening after I had vented my frustrations. "But that does not diminish your achievements. You are doing this for yourself, not for them." In my third year of the program, I met Alicia, a brilliant law student who understood ambition and family pressure. We connected instantly over shared experiences of familial expectations. Unlike my family, Alicia showed genuine interest in my research and celebrated every milestone, no matter how small. "The way you light up when talking about your work is beautiful," she told me early in our relationship. "I love watching someone pursue their passion with such dedication." As I progressed through the program, my research gained attention in the field. I was invited to present at conferences, contributed to important publications, and developed a reputation as a rising talent in computer science. Dr. Crawford ensured I received opportunities to network with industry leaders and academic pioneers. When I passed my comprehensive exams with distinction, Dr. Crawford organized a small celebration with fellow graduate students and faculty members. Ethan and Alicia were there cheering loudly when my name was announced. My parents had been invited months in advance but sent a last-minute text, claiming they could not make the 5-hour drive because Amanda needed help preparing for a job interview. By the time I began work on my dissertation, I had largely stopped expecting my parents to show interest in my academic journey. I immersed myself in research, spending countless hours in the lab developing and testing my theories on advanced machine learning applications. The work was challenging but fulfilling, and for the first time, I was pursuing excellence for myself rather than for parental approval. When I finally completed my dissertation after 2 years of intensive work, the sense of accomplishment was overwhelming. My defense went exceptionally well, with the committee praising the innovation and thoroughness of my research. Dr. Crawford shook my hand firmly afterward and said, "This is one of the finest dissertations I have had the privilege to supervise." As my graduation approached, I allowed myself to feel hopeful one last time. Surely my parents would recognize the significance of this achievement. A Ph.D. from a top university after 8 years of sacrifice and dedication had to merit their attention and pride. I called them 6 months before the ceremony to ensure they would save the date. May 15th, 2 p.m. I told them, "This is really important to me. I need you both to be there." "Of course we will be there," my mother assured me. "We would not miss it for the world." I spent the weeks leading up to graduation, finalizing job offers, with several top tech companies competing for my expertise. I eventually accepted a position with an industry leader that offered both excellent compensation and opportunities to continue my research. I was excited to share this news with my parents at the graduation celebration I had planned. For once, everything in my life was falling into place. I had academic recognition, career prospects, and a loving relationship with Alicia. All that remained was to finally receive the parental recognition I had sought for so long. Despite our history, I truly believed that this achievement would be different, that my graduation would be the moment my parents finally saw me clearly. I could not have predicted how dramatically wrong I would be. The day before my graduation dawned bright and clear. I woke up feeling a mixture of pride and nervous anticipation. After 8 years of relentless work, countless sleepless nights, and numerous sacrifices, I was about to become Dr. Mason Thompson. I had confirmed with my parents just 2 weeks prior, and they had reaffirmed their commitment to attend. Alicia and I spent the morning preparing my apartment for the small celebration I had planned for after the ceremony. I had reserved a table at an upscale restaurant for dinner with my parents, Alicia, Dr. Crawford, and a few close friends. Everything was meticulously arranged to make the day special. Around noon, my phone rang. Seeing my mother's name on the screen, I assumed she was calling to confirm their arrival time or ask for directions to the venue. "Hi, Mom," I answered cheerfully. "Are you and Dad on the road yet?" There was a momentary pause before she responded, her voice hesitant. "Mason, sweetie, something has come up. Your father and I will not be able to make it tomorrow." I felt as if all the air had been sucked from my lungs. Surely I had misheard her. "What do you mean the ceremony is tomorrow? You have known about this for months." "I know, and we feel terrible," she continued, though her tone lacked genuine remorse. "But Amanda needs our help. She and Tyler found an apartment, and they need to move in tomorrow. The timing is just unfortunate." I gripped the phone tighter, struggling to process what I was hearing. "An apartment? You are missing my Ph.D. graduation to help Amanda move into an apartment." "It is not just any apartment," my mother explained, as if this detail made a difference. "It is their first place together, and they need to be out of their current places by the end of the month. Tomorrow was the only day the landlord could give them the keys." "Mom, they could hire movers. Or move the next day. Or the day after that. This is my graduation. I have been working toward this for 8 years. You know your sister Mason. She is not good with logistics and gets overwhelmed easily. They need our help. Tyler's parents are out of town, and they cannot afford professional movers right now." I later learned that this emergency move was to an apartment just 20 minutes from my parents' house. The same parents who claimed they could not make a 5-hour drive to attend my once-in-a-lifetime achievement were willing to spend an entire day lifting furniture for my sister. "I cannot believe this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "After everything, after all these years, you are still choosing her over me." "That is not fair, Mason." My father interjected, apparently having been listening on another extension. "We are not choosing anyone over anyone else. This is just how things worked out. We will celebrate with you another time. Like you celebrated my master's degree, or my undergraduate graduation, or any of my achievements ever." The bitterness I had suppressed for years was finally surfacing. "You are being dramatic," my father replied dismissively. "Amanda needs us right now. You are an adult. You understand how these things go." After a few more minutes of circular conversation, it became clear that no amount of pleading would change their minds. I ended the call abruptly, then sat in stunned silence as Alicia watched me with concern. "They are not coming," I finally said. "Amanda needs help moving into an apartment." The graduation ceremony itself was a blur. I went through the motions walking across the stage when my name was called, shaking hands with the university president, and accepting my diploma. The auditorium was filled with proud families cheering for their graduates, making the empty seats reserved for my parents all the more conspicuous. Dr. Crawford had brought his wife and teenage son to support me. Ethan was there with his girlfriend. My childhood friend Ryan had driven 3 hours to attend. Jackson, a friend from my master's program, had flown in from Seattle. And of course, Alicia sat front and center beaming with pride. They all cheered loudly when I crossed the stage, Dr. Crawford even standing to applaud his student. At one point during the ceremony, I glanced over at the family sitting next to my empty family seats. A mother was openly weeping with joy as her son received his master's degree, the father recording every moment on his phone. The contrast with my own situation was painful to witness. After the ceremony, my support network gathered around me for photos. Dr. Crawford placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "Your work speaks for itself, Mason. You have made a significant contribution to our field, and I could not be prouder to have been your advisor." His words meant everything to me, but they could not completely fill the void left by my parents' absence. As we headed to the restaurant for our celebration dinner, I checked my phone. There was a text from my mother. "Congrats, son. Amanda and Tyler's apartment is lovely. Wish we could have been there. Maybe we can visit next month to celebrate." No apology, no acknowledgement of what they had missed or how their absence might have affected me. Just a casual message as if they had missed a minor social event rather than one of the most significant days of my life. The dinner was enjoyable despite my underlying sadness. My friends and mentors went out of their way to make the evening special, sharing stories and toasting my accomplishment. Alicia had arranged for a custom cake decorated with computer symbols and "Congratulations, Dr. Thompson," written in elegant script. Later that night, as Alicia and I returned to my apartment, the emotional weight of the day finally hit me. I sat on the edge of my bed, diploma in hand, and broke down. Years of suppressed hurt and disappointment poured out as Alicia held me. "They were never going to see me, were they?" I asked through tears. "No matter what I achieve, no matter how hard I work, I will always be secondary to her. Their inability to see your worth does not diminish it," Alicia said softly. "Today proved you have people who truly see you and value you." The next morning, I attempted to explain my feelings to my parents over the phone. I tried to articulate how deeply their absence had hurt me, and how it represented a lifelong pattern of placing Amanda's needs, no matter how trivial, above my significant life events. I sat there with empty seats, where my family should have been. I explained, my voice breaking. "Do you have any idea how that felt?" What happened next would prove to be the final straw in our relationship. My parents' response to my pain was what finally broke me. Rather than acknowledging my feelings or offering a genuine apology, they became defensive and dismissive. "You are being oversensitive," my father said. "It was just a ceremony. You still got your degree, did you not? We would have been there if we could, but Amanda really needed our help. And I did not need you." I countered, my voice rising. "After 8 years of working toward this moment." "Mason, you have always been so independent," my mother chimed in. "Amanda struggles more with these things. The move was very stressful for her. More stressful than defending a doctoral dissertation. More important than witnessing your son receive a Ph.D. "We are proud of you," my father said, his tone suggesting he was humoring me. "But you need to understand that family means being there for each other. Amanda needed us yesterday. And I have never needed you. Not once in 31 years. "That is not what we are saying," my mother replied. "You are twisting our words." The conversation continued in this vein, with my parents refusing to acknowledge any wrongdoing. They minimized my accomplishment, suggested I was being childish for wanting them at my graduation, and repeatedly centered the discussion on Amanda's needs. When I finally hung up, I felt something fundamental shift inside me. The hope I had carried for decades that one day they would see me as equally worthy of their attention and love finally died. In its place grew a resolute clarity. This pattern would never change unless I changed my response to it. The next day, I called Dr. Ellis, a therapist I had seen occasionally, during particularly stressful periods of my doctorate program. I scheduled an emergency session and laid out the entire situation. "What you are describing is a classic golden child and scapegoat family dynamic, doctor," Ellis explained, after listening intently. "Your parents have cast your sister in the role of the golden child who can do no wrong and whose needs always come first. You have been cast as the scapegoat, the one who is expected to be self-sufficient and whose needs are considered secondary." "Will they ever see it?" I asked. Dr. Ellis sighed. "Family dynamics like these are deeply entrenched. Without professional intervention and a willingness to examine their behavior critically, it is unlikely your parents will recognize the pattern on their own. So, what do I do? Just keep accepting this treatment forever." "That depends on what you want," he replied. "You have options ranging from continued attempts at communication with stronger boundaries, to family therapy, to limiting contact, to cutting contact entirely. The question is, what would be healthiest for you?" Over the next few weeks, I reflected deeply on this question. I discussed it with Alicia, with Ethan, with Dr. Crawford. I journaled extensively, documenting instances of favoritism throughout my life and how they had affected me. I realized that my self-worth had been deeply damaged by years of being treated as less important than my sister. After careful consideration, I made my decision. I would cut contact with my parents and Amanda until they could acknowledge the harmful pattern and show genuine remorse. This was not an impulsive choice made in anger, but a considered step toward protecting my mental health. I crafted a careful email to my parents, explaining my decision and the reasons behind it. I outlined the pattern of favoritism I had observed throughout my life, provided specific examples, including the graduation incident, and explained how their behavior had affected me. I made it clear that I was not cutting contact out of spite, but out of self-preservation. "I need to prioritize my own well-being," I wrote. "For years, I have accepted being treated as less important than Amanda. I have made excuses for your behavior and blamed myself for not being worthy of equal attention and love. I cannot do that anymore. Until you can recognize this pattern and take steps to change it, I need to step back from our relationship." I ended by saying that I was open to reconciliation in the future if they were willing to acknowledge the issues and work on changing the family dynamic. I provided resources on family therapy and suggested that could be a pathway forward if they were interested in rebuilding our relationship. 3 days after sending the email, I received a call from my father. His tone was angry and bewildered. "What is this nonsense?" he demanded. "Cutting us off. Your own parents. After everything we have done for you." "Dad, did you actually read what I wrote? Did you consider any of the examples I provided? We gave you everything growing up. We put you through college. And this is how you repay us, by making wild accusations and trying to drive a wedge between us and your sister." It became clear that he had not truly processed anything I had written. In his mind, I was being unreasonable and ungrateful. My mother got on the phone, and her approach was different, but equally dismissive. "Sweetie, I think you are just stressed from finishing your program. Why do you not come home for a few weeks? I will make all your favorite meals, and we can forget this unfortunate misunderstanding." "It is not a misunderstanding, Mom. It is a pattern that has existed my entire life, and the graduation was just the most recent example." "Well, if you are determined to hold a grudge, there is nothing we can do," she sighed. "But know that you are hurting us deeply with these accusations." That conversation confirmed I had made the right decision. They were incapable of seeing their behavior objectively or considering my perspective. Any reconciliation would require a fundamental shift in awareness that they currently seemed incapable of making. The days and weeks following my decision were both liberating and painful. I felt grief for the parental relationship I had always wanted but never had. At the same time, I experienced a profound sense of relief. No longer would I exhaust myself seeking validation from people unwilling to provide it. No longer would I contort myself to fit into a family system that had no equal place for me. It feels like putting down a heavy backpack I have been carrying my whole life, I told Dr. Ellis during one of our sessions. That is a common feeling when people set healthy boundaries with family members, he assured me. There is grief, yes, but also relief. As I began my new job and settled into post-academic life, I focused on building relationships with people who valued me for who I was. The chosen family I had accumulated over the years stepped up to provide the support and celebration my biological family had withheld. For the first time in my life, I felt truly seen and appreciated. The first few months after cutting contact with my parents were a mixture of emotional turbulence and unexpected peace. There were moments when I questioned my decision, particularly during traditionally family-oriented holidays and celebrations. The first Thanksgiving without family contact was especially difficult. Alicia invited me to join her family's celebration, and while they were welcoming and kind, I still felt the absence of my own parents acutely. "Is it normal to miss people who hurt you?" I asked Alicia, as we drove back from her parents' house that evening. "Absolutely," she assured me. "You are not missing how they treated you. You are missing the relationship you deserve to have with them. There is a difference." That distinction helped me process my conflicting emotions. I was grieving not the actual relationship with my parents, but the idealized version I had always hoped for. Recognizing this allowed me to separate my grief from any impulse to resume contact before I was ready. My professional life flourished during this period. Free from the emotional drain of seeking parental approval, I channeled my energy into my new position at a leading tech firm. Within 6 months, I was heading a team developing innovative machine learning applications. My background in academic research proved valuable in an industry setting, and I quickly gained a reputation as someone who could bridge theoretical concepts and practical applications. My relationship with Alicia deepened as well. She had witnessed one of the most vulnerable periods of my life and had offered unwavering support. We moved in together 8 months after my graduation, finding an apartment in a vibrant neighborhood close to both our workplaces. "You seem lighter these days," she observed one evening, as we sat on our balcony, more present. She was right. Without the constant background anxiety of familial disappointment, I found myself more engaged in my daily life. I developed new hobbies, joined a local hiking group, and even began mentoring young computer science students, inspired by Dr. Crawford's example. Dr. Crawford remained a significant figure in my life. We collaborated on research papers, met monthly for lunch, and maintained a relationship that provided the fatherly guidance I had always craved. He never explicitly criticized my parents' behavior, but his consistent support spoke volumes about what healthy mentorship should look like. "The academic community is fortunate to have you," he told me during one of our meetings. "Your contributions are already making waves." Such straightforward appreciation for my work and potential was still somewhat uncomfortable for me to receive, conditioned as I was to having my achievements minimized. But gradually, with Dr. Crawford's encouragement and Alicia's support, I began to internalize a more positive self-image. My friendship circle expanded as well. Without the subtle shame I had carried about my family relationships, I found it easier to form genuine connections with others. Jackson, who had attended my graduation, became a close friend. Ethan remained a constant presence, often joining Alicia and me for weekend activities or game nights. My childhood friend Ryan and I reconnected more deeply, finding our adult friendship even more rewarding than our youthful one. Not all family ties were severed. My mother's brother, Uncle David, reached out to me about 3 months after I cut contact with my parents. Unlike the rest of the family, he seemed to understand my perspective. "I have watched how they treated you and Amanda differently for years," he admitted during our phone call. "I should have said something sooner, but it is not easy to criticize your sister's parenting." His acknowledgement was validating, and we began a correspondence that eventually led to regular video calls. He provided updates on the extended family without pressuring me to resume contact with my parents. The holiday season proved challenging again as Christmas approached. My parents sent a card and gifts to my workplace, having been unable to reach me through my changed personal contact information. The card contained a generic message with no acknowledgement of our estrangement or their role in it. I donated the gifts to a local charity. Several cousins reached out via social media, some supportive of my decision, others questioning it. I explained my position calmly to those who asked, neither seeking to justify myself nor trying to turn them against my parents. Most respected my boundaries, though a few took my parents' side and stopped communicating with me. By the 1-year anniversary of cutting contact, I had established a new normal. My career was thriving, my relationship with Alicia was solid, and my support network was stronger than ever. I continued regular sessions with Dr. Ellis, working through the lingering effects of growing up as the less favored child. What I noticed most, I told him during one session, is how often I apologize for taking up space or having needs. It is like I was programmed to believe my existence was an inconvenience. That programming can be rewritten, he assured me. You have already made remarkable progress. He was right. Each day, without the constant reinforcement of my supposed secondary status, allowed me to reclaim a little more of my authentic self. I became more assertive at work, more present in my relationship, and more comfortable expressing my needs and desires. Then, about 14 months after cutting contact, I received a letter from my father. Unlike previous communications, this one seemed more reflective. He mentioned that my mother was struggling with my absence and that family gatherings felt incomplete without me. While he did not explicitly acknowledge the favoritism I had described, his tone was less defensive. I shared the letter with Dr. Ellis, uncertain how to respond or whether to respond at all. "What do you want?" he asked simply. "I want them to understand what they did," I replied after consideration. "Not just the graduation, but the lifetime of making me feel less important than Amanda. I want a genuine apology and a commitment to change." "And does this letter suggest they are moving in that direction?" I reread it carefully. "Not really. There is sadness that I am gone, but no real understanding of why I left." I decided not to respond. While the letter indicated they missed my presence, it showed no comprehension of the underlying issues. Resuming contact without addressing those issues would only reinstate the harmful dynamic I had worked so hard to escape. Meanwhile, through Uncle David, I heard that my absence was affecting the family in unexpected ways. My parents were facing questions from friends and extended family about my conspicuous absence from gatherings. The simple explanation that I was too busy with work had worn thin, and they were uncomfortable sharing the real situation. More significantly, Amanda's relationship with Tyler had ended, and she had moved back home. Without me to serve as the family scapegoat, tensions between Amanda and my parents were emerging. Her demands for support and attention, once directed at me as unreasonable, were now falling solely on my parents, and they were struggling to manage them. These developments did not bring me joy. I took no pleasure in my family's difficulties. But they did confirm that the dynamic I had identified was real, not merely my perception. The system had been balanced on my acceptance of a subordinate role, and without that acceptance, its dysfunction was becoming apparent to everyone involved. As the second year of estrangement began, I felt increasingly confident in my decision. The grief had not disappeared entirely, but it had transformed into something more manageable, more distant. I no longer woke up thinking about my parents or replaying painful memories. Instead, I focused on building the life I wanted, surrounded by people who genuinely valued me. "Family is who treats you like family," Alicia reminded me one evening, "and you have built a beautiful one around you." Looking at the network of supportive relationships I had cultivated, I could not help but agree. The family I had chosen was proving far more nurturing than the one I had been born into. As the second year of our estrangement progressed, information about my parents and Amanda began filtering back to me through various channels. Uncle David remained my primary source, providing updates during our monthly video calls. Additionally, my mother's cousin Susan, with whom I had always been close, occasionally shared family news. "Your parents are struggling more than they let on," Uncle David told me during one of our conversations. "They never expected this estrangement to last so long. I think they assumed you would come back after a few weeks, when you had, in their words, cooled down." According to Uncle David, my absence had created a noticeable void in family gatherings. Extended family members frequently asked about me, and my parents' vague explanations were no longer satisfying curious relatives. "At the last family reunion, your grandmother cornered your father and demanded to know why you were not there, Uncle David recounted. When he tried to brush it off as you being busy with work, she told him she had been following your career updates online and knew you had attended a conference just 2 hours from their home that same weekend. This confrontation had apparently led to my father reluctantly admitting there was some tension between us, though he presented it as a minor disagreement rather than a fundamental breach. The most significant consequence, however, appeared to be unfolding in my parents' relationship with Amanda. After her breakup with Tyler, Amanda had moved back into our childhood home temporarily. 6 months later, she was still there, with no apparent plans to leave. She lost her job at the advertising agency. Cousin Susan informed me during a coffee meetup. Something about consistently missing deadlines and conflicts with colleagues. Your parents are covering all her expenses now. This financial burden coincided with my father's company downsizing. Though he had kept his job, his hours and compensation had been reduced. My mother had been planning to retire from her administrative position, but Amanda's situation had forced her to continue working. They had been counting on your help with retirement planning, Uncle David admitted reluctantly. Your father mentioned several times that with your new salary, you would be able to help them navigate investment options and possibly provide some financial support as they aged. This revelation was both surprising and illuminating. Throughout my adult life, my parents had emphasized Amanda's need for support, while treating me as completely self-sufficient. It had never occurred to me that they were simultaneously counting on my future assistance, while consistently prioritizing her immediate needs. Another unexpected consequence emerged in their social circle. My mother had always been active in their community, serving on committees, and participating in local events. She had frequently boasted about her successful son pursuing his doctorate to friends and acquaintances. My sudden absence from family references raised questions. Helen Miller asked your mother about you at their book club, Cousin Susan reported. Apparently your mother had been sharing updates about your academic progress for years, and then suddenly stopped mentioning you entirely. When Helen asked directly how you were doing in your new job, your mother became flustered and changed the subject. These social embarrassments were compounded when several of my professional achievements made headlines in industry publications. My team's breakthrough in machine learning applications was featured in a prominent tech magazine, complete with my photograph and a brief biography mentioning my educational background. Your father's colleagues saw the article and congratulated him, Uncle David said. He did not know how to respond when they asked when you would be visiting next. Perhaps the most significant shift was occurring in my parents' relationship with Amanda. Without me as the family shock absorber absorbing criticism and accepting less, while Amanda received more, the imbalance in their parenting had become glaringly obvious. Amanda, accustomed to having her every need met without question, had apparently become increasingly demanding after moving home. She expected my parents to cook her meals, do her laundry, and provide spending money despite being 30 years old. Initially, they had complied, treating these demands as temporary support during a difficult transition. Your mother is exhausted, Cousin Susan confided. She works full-time, then comes home to cook and clean for Amanda. When she suggested Amanda might help with household chores, Amanda accused her of being unsupportive during her crisis period. My father, who had always been Amanda's most fervent defender, was also showing signs of frustration. According to Uncle David, he had expected Amanda to quickly find another job and apartment. When months passed, with minimal effort, on her part tension began to build. I overheard an argument between them, Uncle David told me. Your father told Amanda she needed to start contributing to the household, and she responded by saying they had never made such demands of you. Your father actually said, Mason worked multiple jobs throughout college and graduate school. He never asked us for anything. The irony of this statement, given how my self-sufficiency had been used against me for years, was not lost on me. It seemed my father was finally recognizing the double standard they had established, though only after it began affecting him directly. The extended family dynamics were shifting as well. Several relatives who had initially sided with my parents were reconsidering their position after observing Amanda's behavior and my parents' enabling responses. Your cousin Michael asked me about your side of the story, Uncle David mentioned. He said something did not add up about how your parents described the situation. About 18 months into our estrangement, my parents made their first direct attempt at reconciliation. It came in the form of a text message from my mother. We miss you, Mason. Whatever misunderstandings have occurred, surely we can move past them as a family. Please call us. The message contained no acknowledgement of their behavior, no recognition of the pattern I had outlined in my email, and no apology for missing my graduation or any other instance of favoritism. It positioned our estrangement as a simple misunderstanding, rather than the result of decades of differential treatment. I did not respond. 2 weeks later, my father emailed, "Son, this has gone on long enough. Your mother is upset every day about this situation. We are still your parents, and we deserve more respect than this silent treatment. Call us so we can put this behind us." Again, the message focused on their feelings rather than my experience. It contained an implicit accusation that I was being disrespectful rather than protective of my well-being. I filed the email away without replying. Their attempts at contact continued sporadically, each message similar in tone and content. None addressed the core issues I had raised. None demonstrated any self-reflection or willingness to examine their treatment of me compared to Amanda. Through Uncle David, I learned that Amanda was aware of these attempts and had dismissed my concerns as Mason being dramatic as usual. She had reportedly told my parents, "He will get over himself eventually. He always does." This comment perfectly encapsulated the dynamic that had led to our estrangement. My legitimate grievances were minimized as drama, and my setting of boundaries was reduced to getting over myself. The expectation remained that I would eventually return to my designated role in the family system. But the system was showing increasing signs of strain without my participation. Amanda's demands were becoming unsustainable for my aging parents. My father's reduced income could not support 3 adults indefinitely. My mother's health was suffering from the stress of working full-time while managing Amanda's needs. "I think they are starting to realize they created this situation," Uncle David said during one of our calls. "Your father mentioned that perhaps they had been too hard on you and too easy on Amanda over the years. It was just a passing comment, but it is the first time I have ever heard him acknowledge any imbalance in how they treated you too." It was a small crack in the wall of denial they had built, but a significant one. After nearly 2 years of estrangement, it represented the first hint that my parents might be capable of the self-reflection necessary for genuine reconciliation. Whether that hint would develop into real understanding remained to be seen. But as I approached the 2-year anniversary of cutting contact, I found myself more open to the possibility of reconnection under the right circumstances. The question was whether my parents could provide those circumstances by acknowledging the pattern of favoritism and committing to change. 2 years after cutting contact with my parents, my life had transformed in ways I could never have anticipated. The acute pain of family rejection had gradually given way to a profound sense of peace and self-acceptance. My career had flourished with my team's innovations in machine learning, earning industry recognition and substantial bonuses. I had been promoted to senior development lead, managing a department of 15 talented engineers, and setting strategic direction for major projects. My relationship with Alicia had deepened into something truly extraordinary. We had moved from our apartment into a charming house with a dedicated home office space and a backyard where we hosted regular gatherings of our chosen family. Our discussions had turned toward marriage and possibly children in the future, conversations that filled me with both excitement and careful consideration about what kind of parent I wanted to be. "You will break the cycle," Alicia assured me one evening as we discussed my lingering fears about replicating my parents' favoritism if we had multiple children. "Your awareness alone is the first step in ensuring you will not repeat their mistakes." Dr. Ellis had helped me work through many of these concerns during our ongoing therapy sessions, which had decreased in frequency but remained an important part of my healing journey. "The work you have done to understand family dynamics and recognize unhealthy patterns is remarkable," he told me during a recent session. "Most people never achieve this level of self-awareness." I had built a rich support network of friends and mentors who provided the validation and encouragement my family had withheld. Dr. Crawford and I had co-authored a paper that was receiving significant attention in academic circles. Ethan and his now wife lived nearby and joined us for weekly dinner gatherings. Jackson had introduced me to several of his friends who shared my interest in hiking and outdoor photography. My childhood friend Ryan and I maintained regular contact through video games and occasional visits. I had even begun mentoring younger colleagues and computer science students, drawing on Dr. Crawford's example to provide the guidance and recognition I had craved during my own educational journey. Watching these young professionals flourish under positive reinforcement was healing in its own way. Then, 25 months after I had cut contact, a letter arrived at our house. The handwriting on the envelope belonged to my mother, but the contents surprised me. Unlike previous attempts at communication, this letter was different in both tone and substance. "Dear Mason," it began, "after much reflection and several difficult conversations, your father and I have come to recognize the truth in what you told us 2 years ago. We did treat you and Amanda differently throughout your lives, consistently prioritizing her needs and minimizing your achievements. We made excuses for this behavior, telling ourselves that you were strong and independent while she needed more support. We now understand that this was unfair and hurtful to you." The letter continued with specific acknowledgments of instances where they had shown favoritism, including the high school graduation gifts, disparity, the lack of support during my undergraduate years, and of course missing my Ph.D. graduation to help Amanda move. "Missing your graduation was inexcusable," my mother wrote. "There were many alternatives we could have pursued to help Amanda while still being present for your important day. Choosing her convenience over your major life achievement was wrong, and we deeply regret it." My father had added a paragraph in his own handwriting. "Son, I have always been proud of your accomplishments, but I failed to show it properly. I took your strength for granted and used it as an excuse to give you less than you deserved. A father should build up his children equally, and I failed in that responsibility. Your decision to distance yourself has forced me to confront some uncomfortable truths about my parenting. I am truly sorry for the pain I have caused you." The letter concluded with an expression of remorse and a request, not a demand, for an opportunity to begin rebuilding our relationship. They suggested meeting in a neutral location with a family therapist present if I preferred to discuss how we might move forward. "We understand if you are not ready or willing to reconnect," the letter finished. "We respect the boundaries you have set and will accept whatever decision you make. We simply wanted you to know that we have heard you. We understand now, and we are deeply sorry." I read the letter several times, trying to process my emotions. There was skepticism, certainly. After decades of established patterns, could they really have changed so fundamentally? Yet, there was also a flicker of hope. The specific acknowledgments and lack of defensiveness suggested genuine reflection had occurred. I shared the letter with Alicia, Dr. Ellis, and a few close friends, seeking their perspectives before making any decision. The acknowledgement of specific instances shows they have really thought about this, Dr. Ellis observed, and the respect for your boundaries is a positive sign. However, real change is demonstrated through consistent behavior over time, not just words in a letter. Alicia was cautiously supportive. "You have come so far in your healing. If you want to explore reconnection with appropriate boundaries, I will support you. If you are not ready, that is equally valid." After careful consideration, I decided to respond. I wrote that I appreciated their acknowledgement and apology, and that I would be willing to meet with them in a neutral location with a family therapist present. I made it clear that this would be a first step toward possible reconciliation, not an immediate restoration of our previous relationship. 2 weeks later, we met at a family counselor's office. The therapist, Dr. Martinez, had experience with estrangement and family system issues. She facilitated a structured conversation that allowed each of us to express our perspectives and feelings. My parents appeared genuinely changed. My father, usually stoic and defensive, spoke openly about his recognition of the favoritism he had shown. I always told myself I was being fair, just responding to different needs, he admitted. But looking back, I see how consistently we prioritized Amanda, and how that must have made you feel less valued. No child should feel that way, especially from their parents. My mother, emotional but composed, acknowledged her role as well. "I think I identified more with Amanda's personality, and that blinded me to how I was treating you. That is not an excuse, just an explanation I have come to recognize through therapy." I learned that several factors had contributed to their changed perspective. Amanda's continued dependence had strained their resources and patience. Extended family members had increasingly questioned their account of our estrangement. Perhaps most significantly, my mother had begun seeing a therapist for anxiety and depression, following a minor health scare, and this had led to deeper examination of family dynamics. Your absence forced us to look at patterns we had normalized, my father explained. Without you absorbing so much of the family tension, the imbalance became impossible to ignore. The session was emotionally challenging, but productive. Dr. Martinez helped us establish clear expectations and boundaries for moving forward. We agreed to continue family therapy sessions bi-weekly and to gradually reintroduce contact through short, structured interactions. Interestingly, Amanda was not present at this meeting, nor at subsequent therapy sessions. According to my parents, she had refused to participate, maintaining that I was overreacting and that they were enabling my manipulation by acknowledging any wrongdoing. She is not in a place where she can see her role in the family dynamic, my mother explained carefully. That is something she will need to work through in her own time, but we are no longer making excuses for her behavior. Over the following months, our reconnection progressed cautiously. We met for occasional lunches in public places, had brief phone conversations, and continued the family therapy sessions. There were occasional missteps and old patterns that emerged, but my parents showed willingness to recognize and correct these behaviors when they occurred. The most telling change was in how they responded to my professional achievements. When my team received an industry award for innovation, both parents attended the ceremony, listened attentively to my speech, and spoke proudly about my work to others present. They asked thoughtful questions about my projects and remembered details from previous conversations. 6 months into our reconciliation process, I felt comfortable enough to invite them to our home for dinner with Alicia. The evening went surprisingly well, with my parents making genuine efforts to connect with Alicia and showing interest in our lives together. My relationship with Amanda remained distant. We had one brief tense phone conversation in which she accused me of turning our parents against her. When I calmly explained that I was simply asking for equal treatment, not preferential treatment, she dismissed my perspective entirely. "You always had to make everything about you," she said bitterly. "Now you have mom and dad walking on eggshells and questioning everything they do for me." Her reaction confirmed that she remained entrenched in her role as the family's central figure. While I hoped she might eventually recognize the unhealthy dynamics, I accepted that I could not control her journey or perspective. My parents continued to provide financial support to Amanda, but had established firmer boundaries. They required her to contribute to household expenses, actively seek employment, and participate in therapy. These changes had created tension between them, but they were maintaining their position. We realize now that our enabling was not actually helping her, my father admitted during one of our therapy sessions. It prevented her from developing independence and resilience qualities that you had to develop on your own. As we approached the 3-year mark from my initial decision to cut contact, I reflected on the journey. The estrangement had been painful but necessary. It had forced a recognition and reckoning that might never have occurred otherwise. The reconciliation was not perfect, and our relationship would never be what I had imagined as a child, but it was healthier and more honest than before. More importantly, the experience had taught me profound lessons about self-worth and boundaries. I had learned that family is defined by actions, not blood, and that respect must be mutual in any healthy relationship. I had discovered the courage to stand up for myself and the wisdom to surround myself with people who genuinely valued me. The hardest part was accepting that I deserved better. I told Dr. Ellis during what would be one of our final regular sessions. For so long, I believed that their treatment was somehow my fault, that if I just achieved more, or asked for less, they would finally see me. And now, he prompted. Now, I know that their treatment reflected their limitations, not my worth. I deserve respect and consideration regardless of what I achieve or how I compare to anyone else, including my sister. That knowledge has changed everything. As I look back on this journey, I realize that cutting contact was never about punishment or revenge. It was about valuing myself enough to step away from a situation that was diminishing me. The consequences my parents faced were not ones I orchestrated or desired, but rather the natural result of patterns they had established. Reconciliation became possible not because I compromised my needs, but because they finally recognized them. True family bonds can withstand honest confrontation and grow stronger through accountability. Sometimes the greatest act of love, both for yourself and others, is to stand firmly in your truth and require that it be respected. If you have ever felt like the least favorite child, or struggled with family members who consistently devalue your needs and achievements, know that you are not alone. Setting boundaries is not selfish. It is necessary for your well-being. Whether those boundaries involve limiting contact, requiring changed behavior, or even temporary estrangement, you deserve relationships that honor your worth. I would love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? How did it affect your relationship in the long run? Please like this video if my story resonated with you, subscribe for more real-life experiences, and share with someone who might need to hear that standing up for themselves is both brave and necessary. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, sometimes the family you choose is as important as the family you were born into.